Welcome, students. This orientation video will outline the 7 reasons that I typically see students struggle in my classes and how to avoid them. In quick summary, feel free to pause the video and look at this chart in detail. This is my basic classroom structure. There are 5 skills that successful students typically demonstrate in order to achieve high skill levels, or in other words, grades. Those skills are seeking understanding before seeking points. If you're striving to understand the content, the success will follow. Consistent practice. If you're not creating your own personal work outside of the classroom, you're never going to get any better. Just like if you only went to the big games if you were on the basketball team, but never went to practice. It's the same thinking. My A-level students frequently draw in their free time for fun, and they practice a lot. For example, one student after spring break, I asked her, "Hey, how was your spring break? What did you do?" She said, "I just drew the whole time." That's why she was my top student. Consistent attendance. Also, when you miss class, consistent attendance looks like making up the difference. Filling in the holes left by your absence. Organization. That's keeping everything in one place, not losing anything. Self-discipline. That's governing your mind, thinking about how you think, disciplining your emotions, focusing on the bigger picture, and doing what it takes for success. Students with low skill levels typically fall short in these different areas. Students, again, with low skill levels operate outside of this classroom structure. There are some of these things that they choose not to do and therefore struggle. Reason 1, poor time management. You have a deadline, you miss it. Or when you're in class, you just can't seem to get things done, or your work is at a very low level of ability. Here's typically why. Most of the time, if your mind is on anything other than the task that you're supposed to be doing, you're not on task. That's bad time management. So students typically socialize during this point. They miss their deadlines, or they socialize, or they're off task on their electronics devices, messing around on your phones. Maybe spending time on earlier stages of the product that are wasteful. Poor time management. Case in point, I've got a group of young ladies in one of my art classes. They're A and B students outside of my class, but in my class, they're C-level students. It's because they're so busy talking to each other, they're not actually working. So now, priorities. The solution to that is evaluate why you're here. If you truly love this stuff, your mind won't even be on the person next to you. It's going to be on the doing of the task. That's how you know if you're in the right environment. So evaluate your priorities. Your outcome is tied to your priorities. Another one is not being organized. Deadline comes and only half the assignment is submitted. A note check arrives, but there's no notebook. Or there's a first stage in a project and that was left at home, okay? All of these contribute to low scores in the class. My solutions? Follow my training. Follow my standards. They're there to protect you. If my standard says to save your work onto the cloud every day, but you choose to save it on your thumb drive instead, then when you lose your thumb drive, you're not going to have anything to be graded. And that happens many times throughout the year to the detriment of the student's grades. It's their choice not to follow the standard. Following directions. This one's pretty much a no-brainer. I give you a brief that gives you pictures and diagrams, outlines procedures, and shows exactly what you're expected to do on this project. You have the creative freedom to choose whatever you want within those boundaries. But for some reason, I still get work that does not follow the directions. For example, if I say it has to include X, Y, and Z, sometimes those things are either missing or totally different things are there. So my solution? Follow the directions. You can work your heart out and spend double the time and effort, but you will not achieve success in the labs if you do not follow those directions. Knowledge gaps. That means if you don't understand something, but you still choose to move forward. Now, everything I teach you in this class will be tied to earlier understanding, meaning if we're at Unit 3 and there's stuff from Unit 1 you didn't understand, you're going to have a very hard time doing Unit 3, and it's only going to get worse. So if you're here to truly learn, your understanding should be coming before grades. That's the solution. If you're concerned about earning scores or points or grades, you're not in the right class. Once you've mastered this material, that'll be shown in your skill level, which translates into your grade. Attend a reteach session, study on your own, take strong notes. Use those notes, especially if you're organized. Review my training material. Go seek out additional material besides the stuff that I make. Patch those gaps for success. Apathy. This is starting to get into the will of the student, what's inside of your head. And these are all factors that I, as your teacher, cannot control. Apathy means you just don't care. The solution to that, again, evaluate your priorities. And the biggest one is parental support. If you don't care, your parent's job is to motivate you to care. Parents, if you're watching this isn't parental advice. This is just what I've seen in the past with students who were initially apathetic and then they had a dramatic turnaround. What typically worked in these situations involved tying privileges to academic accomplishment. Are you sleeping in class? Well, there goes your car. And when your grades go up, you get your car back. Or there goes the video game system. Distractions from cell phones were easily resolved once the phone was removed and earned back. One of the most successful methods I saw a parent use was when they provided their child with a planner. And it was my job to sign off on if the student was doing their job every day with specific behaviors we were trying to correct. But in general, there's nothing a teacher can do to combat apathy. It's in the hands of the student and the parents. Overconfidence. We're going to categorize this into two separate groups. The first is an artist who's been drawing all their life, but they focus on a very narrow skill set. Let's say characters. Now you're going to sign up for an art class. People have been telling you you're an amazing artist. Your parents have been telling you you're an amazing artist. And what happens when all of a sudden your first lesson is linear perspective? Linear perspective, calculating lighting, light and shadow, and all of a sudden the student isn't successful in these areas and their confidence takes a hit. The solution to that is study. Don't approach this as if you're overtrained and going to get an easy A. You need to learn this stuff and demonstrate this stuff. Now the second group is going to be your academic powerhouses. Students who are used to A's and B's all through their career, and all of a sudden they take an art class and they've never drawn before. They have zero exposure to this content. What happens when all of a sudden they get a C or a D on the project? Their solution is to practice and study, which is going to lead me into number 7 right here. Coping skills are how you deal with life's hardships and stressors. When you fall down, how do you get back up? Or even do you? All of a sudden, your art, this personal thing that your identity has been tied to positively from other people telling you you're so amazing, all of a sudden you get a D or a C on it. How are you going to take that? I'll give you an example of this. I had a student who was very used to getting A's and B's, was signed up into an art class not because she wanted to be in one, but because it fit her schedule. She had weak coping skills, so she chose not to come to class for about half of the lesson. What she turned in was only half complete. Now in her mind, it was all about effort. In her mind, it was complete. On the lab brief, it was a D. She didn't follow any instructions or demonstrate any of the skills. So what do you think happened? How does someone with weak coping skills react to this? They'll tell you that it is the teacher's fault. And what a mean teacher I was for giving her a D. Giving her a D. In reality, her skill set was incomplete, which was categorized as a D, and it said so in the brief, which she never read. So what did she do? She skipped class, starts trying to get out of it, would take the hall pass and disappear for 45 minutes. Got written up multiple times because I'd confirm her whereabouts. She'd lie, and she ended up in a very rough situation because she was not mature enough or had the coping skills necessary to cope with being told that she needs to grow. If you need coping skills, talk to one of the counselors here at school. And here's another big one. Grow up and get a job. Sounds harsh, but it's true. Employment skills at your young age in high school will be invaluable. The last thing you want to do is to graduate from college without any work experience. Working under a supervisor, being given a task, failing at that task, and learning how to recoup and move forward. Those are all skills that will give you grit and endurance. That'll teach you customer service and a variety of skills to succeed in the classroom. This is one of the biggest coping skills right here, metacognition. That means thinking about how you think. Thinking about how you think. This is a skill that is difficult to learn, and it becomes easier with age and as you mature. Think from outside of yourself. Think, how does this factor into the big picture? What did I do or didn't do for success? What are my teacher's overall goals? What does my boss expect of me? What does my boss's boss expect of him? And how do I factor into that? These are all things that you consider when you think about how you think. Ask yourself, are these thoughts true? Are they false? And how can you know about that? And that is how you succeed to the 7 major problems that I see with my students. I hope you found this helpful. I look forward to seeing you in class. Take care.